creating chapters. We're talking about the dream of millions of citizens. They have placed their trust in us. When I think back, Spain and Portugal were in the same position 40 years ago. It was about people's dreams and aspirations. So I'd like to end on a personal note. I was a teenager when Spain signed the accession treaty to join the European Economic Community. I remember how my parents felt about that, how my teachers felt about that. They all saw Europe as a promise of freedom, prosperity and democracy after decades of dictatorship. And that dreaming spirit, that positive dream, stayed with us. We are still aware that Europe changed our lives forever. And that dream of democracy in Spain and Portugal turned into reality. So I say to you, your efforts will turn out to be worthwhile. They are not in vain. Since 2004, the 10 countries that joined the EU have seen child poverty drop from 41 to 17%. They've seen 6 million new jobs. They've seen higher education reaching an additional fifth of the young population. Spain doubled its exports. Italy increased its trade by 76%. The EU overall became stronger, more diverse and safer. That's the true story of accession. More prosperity, more democracy and more opportunities. The EU also needs to constantly change to continue facing new challenges. We cannot welcome all the new members with the structures of the past. We need far-reaching reform. We need to go from unanimity to qualified majority in order to ensure that an EU of 37 member states can respond effectively to crises and challenges which occur globally. If we want the EU to be strong, we need to show courage and valour and put our own house in order. Dear friends, let us heed the call of history. Once again, after the Berlin Wall fell, Willy Brandt said, "What has come together must now grow together." And that is what we must do too. It's not just a practical issue, it's a moral duty to the next generation. So here, in Opatia, we renew our commitment to say, yes, we will build Europe, the Europe that together we dream of. Thank you very much.
Irace, and now I will ask Tonino Pizzula, member of the European Parliament, rapporteur for Serbia, but a long-standing expert on the Western Balkans and on foreign policy. Please, Tonino.
Danke, Andreas. Dear honorable guests, dear colleagues, dragi prijatelji. Izuzetno mi je zadovoljstvo poželjeti vam dobrodošlicu na ovaj skup u Opatiji u Hrvatskoj.
To welcome you to this gathering in Opatija, Croatia. We are here with a clear reason to gather our friends and colleagues from the Western Balkans, but also from the European Union and the European Parliament to discuss jointly our common priorities for the enlargement policy and the future that we want to shape together. Enlargement has always been a progressive idea. It's not an issue only of geopolitics, but of building a whole democratic and fair Europe. This is a matter of peace, democracy and prosperity. To our minds, enlargement has never been only a technical process, but it includes societies and communities that are changed through this common project.
In Parliament, enlargement is not simply an institutional policy. It's a vision of Europe that lives up to its founding values and extend them to those who share and defend them. The challenges we face today show why enlargement must remain credible and fair. The Copenhagen criteria are not negotiable. Reforms must be genuine, not cosmetic. Enlargement without democracy, media freedom and the rule of law risks importing instability instead of consolidating prosperity. But enlargement, with these values at its core, is one of Europe's most powerful instruments. We see this clearly in Serbia, where citizens, especially the young, are demanding dignity, accountability, and democracy. Their courage shows that change is possible. But accession can only move forward when there is a real political will to deliver reforms, from free media and electoral integrity to alignment with Europe's foreign policy. Serbia, like every candidate, must make a clear choice to stand on the side of Europe and its values, whoever will be in power. We also see positive examples. Montenegro has led the process for years, with strong public support for membership. But its ambitious goals can only be reached through unity, consensus, and respect for constitutional principles. If Montenegro maintains its momentum and strengthens dialogue among all political actors, it can be the next member of our Union, and that would be a success for the whole region. Bosnia and Herzegovina also belongs to the EU. Honoring truth is essential for a better future. Despite political blockades and destruction or threats, every genuine step forward, such as adopting reform agendas, deserves recognition and support. The people of Bosnia and Herzegovina want progress, and they deserve a credible European path. North Macedonia's rightful place is in the European Union, yet it's deeply regrettable that its path has been slowed by lateral disputes unrelated to Copenhagen criteria, an injustice to both its reformers and its citizens who remain firmly committed to the European future. At the same time, Albania is demonstrating remarkable progress, delivering tangible reforms, strengthening democratic institutions, the rule of law, and the fight against corruption. These achievements deserve recognition, as they embody the transformative spirit of enlargement and show that process can produce real and positive change. Unfortunately, our friends from Kosovo could not be here with us today, but their European path is no less important. The citizens of Kosovo have shown clear commitment to the European future, and it's essential and their aspirations are met with fairness, clarity, and credible perspective for enlargement. Friends and colleagues, enlargement is not a transaction. As we know, thinking that you can ensure democracy with the EU funds is a failed concept. The European Union is not only a market, it's a community of values and shared risks. That is the message we must say out loud in Brussels to the European Commission and to send it to our partners. When real reforms are made, they will be rewarded. When there is backsliding, it will be addressed. Only this way enlargement does remain fair, transformative and progressive. Uvijek volim reći da politiku
I always like to say that politics is determined by two emotions, fear and hope. In the context of enlargement, we have to face the fears of European Union societies which are skeptical towards further enlargement. We have to illustrate the benefits of enlargement that they themselves enjoy. We also say that enlargement policy must be credible, and we, with our actions, have to offer credible hope to the peoples of the Western Balkans that they will join us. Together, we are going to build a Europe which delivers, which is open to those who share our values, to citizens who want to share a common future, and which preserves democracy and justice in these very dangerous and uncertain times, especially. Thank you.
Thank you, Tonino Pizzola, for this great introduction in the topic. And now we have the honor and the pleasure to welcome also the Prime Minister from Bosnia-Herzegovina and also leader of the Social Democratic Party from Bosnia-Herzegovina to be with us here. Please welcome for your
dragi prijatelji, veliko mi je zadovoljstvo da vas danas pozdravim i zahvalim kolegama što su pitanje proširenja i Zapadnog Balkana stavili u centar današnjih susreta i razgovora. Od posljednjeg proširenja prošlo je 12 godina.
As this isn't an official language, we can't do anything that is not Croatian.
Moram ponavljati. Zabunu Tonino unio, malo na hrvatskom, malo na engleskom. Malo se zabunu unio, malo na hrvatskom, malo na engleskom. Može, moram ponoviti. Samo zadnja rečenica. One moraju ponoviti. Dakle, evo samo zadnja rečenica. Od posljednjeg proširenja.
Since the last enlargement, there have been 12 years, and this is the longest period in which the European Union has not had any countries join. I hope that my country is seen as a prospective candidate. Goal is membership, and it also has to be accompanied by a strategic determination of the European Union as a guarantee of safety and peace. There have been several events since the first agreement in 2010 and the opinion of the Commission of 2019 and the recommendations on opening negotiations in 2022 and since the green light by the Council in 2024. Regardless of the timing, one thing is always constant. That's the aspiration of the Bosnian people to live in the EU. There have been periods of renewed enthusiasm and also of fatigue on both sides. And there have been also high expectations of the European Commission from the Bosnian administration. But regardless of all that, this path requires a lot of courage and has required tough negotiations and compromises, especially in complex societies such as Bosnia and Herzegovina is. I'm proud that Bosnia and Herzegovina, in the first year of my mandate, according to estimates of the European Commission, has done more than previous governments over the past 10 years and has made progress towards opening the negotiations, which is a key step for the country. The separatist policies of trying to destroy the country, which is conducted by Milorad Dodik and which is supported by Moscow, is the main reason for the process to be very halting. And there have been periods where people truly believed that in our country a new war would start. Don't misunderstand me, but nobody then spoke about chapters or criteria. Then they were thinking about fleeing. Today, fortunately, there are no security challenges which should worry us, but in the case of Bosnia and Herzegovina, however, processes may be slow. In other cases, situations may change overnight. So in this respect, I would like to stress and welcome the presence of the international military mission EUFOR Althea. The presence of European forces is not only a message of peace, but it tells us that we haven't been forgotten, that there is a Europe which doesn't look at borders only, but at people who live with hope in its neighborhood. Unfortunately, Bosnia is still a country which many blockings that were established by the peace accords, which did stop the war, has the need for the Institute of the High Representative and the Ambassador of the European Commission. This institutional presence of the international community has a decisive role in protecting the rule of law and democratic processes. The judgment of the BIH court against Milorad Dodik sends a clear message. The institutions of this country exist and they will not step down in the face of threats. They will overcome them by law, not by force. During this year, we have adopted several laws, the law on protecting personal information, the law on the border service, then the strategy on integrated managing of the borders, and we have completed the process to sign the agreement with Eurojust and Frontex. Reforms are maybe in the media, but they make the difference between stagnation and progress. We're here not to seek applause, but rather to seek partnership in changes that are still tough but necessary. The adoption of the growth plan, which happened on Tuesday, shows that the European path has no alternative. We still have concrete tasks ahead of us, adopting the law on courts of Bosnia and Herzegovina, and the appointment of the main negotiator. But before we appoint the negotiator with the European Union, we have an internal negotiator, particularly the political agreement within the country, with forces which are still doing their utmost to slow us down. If you know that you have to achieve consensus, and at the same time you know that there is a Russian satellite which will block that agreement, then you will see how complex a process this is. The good news is the opposition from Republika Srpska has a clear European dedication, and thanks to their voices, we have adopted many important laws. For example, the changes in the law on public procurement and the penal code. And this is one of the 14 key priorities of the EU, and we had the support of the opposition from Republika Srpska. In the light of the title of this panel, Progressive Agenda for EU Enlargement, let me share my thoughts on what for Bosnia and Herzegovina at this moment could serve as a step toward progress. The member countries which introduced sanctions against Milorad Dodik, in the United States, Great Britain, Germany, Austria, Poland, Slovenia, and so on, have sent a clear and strong message that they oppose separatism, corruption, and Russian involvement. The continuation of this process would be a powerful message to all those who conduct dangerous policies. In the Balkans, there has never been a clear and peaceful separation. Every attempt to do that was an introduction to tragedy. So I think that there are still enough people who are ready in Bosnia and Herzegovina to join the EU and help us that this generation, not a future generation, be that which will close the chapter of war and open the chapter of European integration. So the continuation of the explanatory screening with Bosnia and Herzegovina would serve as a strong encouragement, not only technically but also symbolically, and will be a message to citizens that their country is moving forward. Sending this message is especially important because although the public support to the European integration is still high, 69.9%, it is slowly dropping, and citizens don't need promises, they need concrete hope. Europe cannot be complete without the Western Balkans, and Bosnia and Herzegovina is not complete without Europe. I'm glad that the enlargement is again at the focus of the European political debate, and that you're again focusing on the Western Balkans. We know that the greatest part of the responsibility lies on us, and that without results there is no progress. But this process is a common responsibility. I hope that this discussion will be used not to talk only about issues concerning enlargement, but also solutions, about courage, vision and solidarity. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the next debate.
Thank you, Prime Minister Nikšić, for putting not only the perspectives of your country, Bosnia-Herzegovina, to our attention, but also to put it in a broader European perspective, what means in these times the peace project of enlargement. Now we come to the phase of the discussion with also our distinguished guests. So I will ask all our guests to come to the stage, which let me welcome Daniel Zivkovic, leader of the Democratic Party of Socialists from Montenegro. You can choose. Let us welcome also Srdan Milojevic, the leader of the Democratic Party of Serbia. And Mr. Ivan Vujovic, leader of the Social Democratic Party of Montenegro. And also we welcome Marinika Tepic, from the parliamentary group leader from the Party of Freedom and Justice from Serbia. And also our friend Tauland Palla, the leader of the parliamentary group of the Socialist Party of Albania. And Professor Dr. Ana Čupeska, the Vice President of the Social Democratic Union of Macedonia. So, good morning, everybody. And as we already heard from Tonino and from Tonino Pizzola and from Irache Garcia Perez, for us as socialists and democrats, the enlargement is crucial because it is showing that the European Union can also deliver what we are on the Sunday speech is always declaring. It's also the issue that the European Union is able to finish projects, but it's also about our values and our rule of law and all this, what is the value union of the European Union. Therefore, for us as progressives, to make an enlargement functioning means also to stand for this, but it's also, of course, in times like this, also giving hope to the citizens of our countries of the European Union, but also of your countries, that economically, socially, job-wise, but also in the social protection and environment issue, things are going further. So therefore, we are happy to have you all here, because I think it is important to send here from our group meeting in Opatija also the strong message where we stand for. And therefore, I will start with you, Daniel. As from Montenegrin perspective, maybe you give us some insight on this.
Prije svega koristim priliku da vas sve srdačno pozdravim.
First of all, I would like to use this opportunity to welcome all of you and to say how pleased I am to speak from the perspective of the opposition in Montenegro. I would like to say a few words about the enlargement process from this perspective. First of all, I have to emphasize that I think it is a very good idea that we are having this discussion today, and I suppose that in Copenhagen you also spoke about the perspective of the European Union and the prospects of the Western Balkans. When speaking about Montenegro. As you know, Montenegro is one of the leading countries in the enlargement process. It is set to end this integration process by 2026, which is quite challenging as a program. Montenegro is set to become the next member state of the European Union by 2028, according to some estimates. 5 years ago, the government changed in Montenegro. My party became an opposition party. The European integration process was started in 2012. We opened all the negotiating chapters, and a new government is now in a position to make some key steps. The reform agenda was stopped by the current parliamentary majority in the parliament. It is clear that they want to stop Montenegro's enlargement process because they are consistently stoking confrontation with Croatia, which is a neighboring country, and this gives reason to some EU countries to stop Montenegro on its path. As we heard, European integration is not just a technical process. You can always find a parliamentary majority which will align our legislation with the acquis. You will find people who will vote for these pieces of legislation, but the European Union means values, and we cannot compromise on these values. Today in Montenegro, there are still political structures which are not clear about certain issues, such as the genocide in Srebrenica. You still have politicians who claim that Putin is their leader and that the Russian interests should prevail in Montenegro and the Western Balkans. These political structures are the mainstream, are the majority in Montenegro today. So the question arises whether with such a parliamentary majority we can emancipate the Montenegrin society and reach to the crux of our aspirations, that Montenegro can become a member of the European family. We think that this parliamentary majority, the way it is structured, cannot lead Montenegro into the European Union, nor can it improve and expedite the process of European integration. Yes, we will adopt the acquis. We will certainly close certain negotiating chapters by 2026. But the real question is whether everyone in the international community truly understands the political context in Montenegro. The question is whether structures exist which understand that the European integration does not boil down merely to adopting legislation in the parliament. So this is something we need to pay attention to. When you are putting a question on certain values which should not be compromised, then the question arises whether you are truly prepared to enter this community in terms of respecting its values. There are still political structures in Montenegro which promote values that were defeated in the Second World War, that collaborated with the Nazi regime or with the fascists. These political structures exist, and they are trying to put emphasis on these ideologies and to turn Montenegro away from its European path. Inside the parliamentary majority, there are some people who are leading the government and who have been declared persona non grata in Croatia, a neighboring country. So the question is whether we can truly become members of the European family with these people leading us. The European Union has emphasized the need for us to work on a very ambitious reform agenda. So we, who are in the opposition, we will try to do that. And the opposition must give a constructive contribution so that we can reach the European Union as soon as possible. Unfortunately, I fear that the current government in Montenegro does not understand that this is a problem which is much wider than just the situation in Montenegro, and it remains to be seen how the European Union will deal with structural problems in Montenegro. The European Union is facing huge challenges. We understand this, security risks and challenges and economic challenges. We also understand that the war is at the doorstep of Europe and that this is a security threat which needs to be tackled. But we cannot have a stable Europe without a stable Western Balkans inside the EU. And this is something that we must all understand. We belong in Europe, and we must insist on the fact that this process should be completed, really completed, not just from the technical side. So we believe that we must unite progressive forces in Montenegro and elsewhere, forces which will not use just empty words. The reform agenda is very clear and precise. We need a responsible, stable government with a clear vision and strategy in order for the European integration process to be completed properly. Sometimes so this should be done by the government, and this will benefit to everyone living in Montenegro and the EU. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Daniel. And now we switch, while you were speaking the rule of law, to our friend Srdan from the Democratic Party of Serbia.
Dragi prijatelji, pre svega prenosim vam reči zahvalnosti građana Srbije.
Dear friends, I would like to thank you for your timely support and everything you did so that our fight against dictatorship be heard outside Serbia even. And thank you really for that. In Serbia currently we have a very dangerous regime which is an obstacle not only to the normal development of Serbia but also to the normal development in the Balkans. What once used to be the Berlin Wall for Europe, that is Alexander Vučić today for Western Balkans. He's the Berlin Wall of Balkans, and unfortunately the foundation of that wall reaches to Beijing and the Kremlin. We cannot have normalization of political circumstances in Serbia without bringing down that wall. Now we're fighting to re-establish normality. I'm going to list 6 dangerous precedents committed by the Alexander Vučić regime and illustrate why he's dangerous to the Western Balkans. I am shocked that a country, although I come from that very country, which is a candidate for EU accession, is joining, or rather its leadership joined on 9th May to the military parade in Beijing. And after that, some members of the EPP came to Belgrade and said that Vučić is the champion of European integration, which is an insult to us. Then Alexander Vučić went to the military parade in Beijing and took photos with people banned from Europe, and sends a clear message of where he sees Serbia. And then, on the instructions of the Russian security services, Mr. Narishkin said that what is happening in Serbia, this is not a fight for power, but a fight for freedom. So that what is happening is a colored revolution financed by the EU. This is not true at all. And the only one who is conducting a colored revolution in the territory of Europe is Alexander Vučić. When parliamentary elections were held in Moldova, Vučić was preparing a group with 140 mercenaries from Moldova, trained by Russian instructors, and they were sent to Moldova to cause mayhem. So this is an example of how to destabilize countries, which reaches even further beyond Western Balkans. Let me remind you that in Serbia, 2 Chinese spies were arrested on the instructions of the US for serious crimes committed in the territory of the US, and the prosecution punished them with house arrest, whereas students protesting in streets were held in jails for months. These 2 spies, on the other hand, were in house arrest, and then they went missing. Nobody knows where these 2 spies are now. And a couple of days ago, there was news that in Serbia, on the request of our partners from the EU, a group of people was arrested, which in Paris and Berlin were leaving hogs' heads in front of religious buildings of the Muslims, and also used paint to paint synagogues. I don't want to guess who did that, but I think that a candidate country should have a security service that would be able to stop that. But this service is accused of smuggling drugs and also of being involved in other crimes in Western Balkans. You heard the representative of Montenegro saying that there is an influence of certain political structures, but Aleksandar Vučić cannot allow Montenegro to become part of the European Union. Through Andrija Mandić and Mr. Knežević, Aleksandar Vučić is doing everything he can to destabilize Montenegro. The envoys of Aleksandar Vučić were arrested in Montenegro with bags of cash during Montenegrin elections, and this is unacceptable behavior on the part of Aleksandar Vučić. So please never equate Serbia and his regime. More than 40 years we have been devoted to European integrations, and I represent the party of Zoran Đinđić, which led the European idea in Serbia, and Đinđić was killed for that. Crime does not know borders, but that must be true of solidarity as well. And the students' movement, which started 10 months ago, is the strongest message. Sometimes I'm asked why there are no European flags in protests. But it's hard to expect these flags in protest in a country where Vučić is recognized as a champion of European integration. But the students support the European idea of solidarity, equality and brotherhood. Just look at the young people in Novi Pazar, where Bosniaks live. They have joined forces together with students from other places, from Kruševac, for example, and the spread shows that normality in the Western Balkans will be re-established when such bridges are built between Belgrade and Podgorica and Belgrade and Sarajevo. But this is not an ideological fight, and don't ask me whether this is a pro-European movement or not. This is an epic struggle for freedom, and we want to create an environment of a referendum, either Serbia or Mafia. So it's commendable that we are now trying to start the discussion to eject Aleksandar Vučić from the EPP family. And as I've heard, there are debates going on whether to expel Fico from our party because he has no place here. But let me share a final message with you. Vučić has claimed for years that he's a factor of stability in Serbia, and Europe has chosen stableocracy in Serbia, but we have neither stability nor democracy. We have a man who says that his power is his strong hand, but bloody hands cannot open European chapters. His hands are tainted with the blood of political assassinations, of corruption. And on the other hand, you have a political force and a political option which is not extending a bloody hand to Europe, but a clean hand. We are offering this clean hand to the region and to Europe. So I would like Europe to recognize Serbia's clean hands. You can see them here, and I ask you for help in our fight for freedom. So please don't let the Balkans and the first half of the 21st century to have their Lukashenko. One Lukashenko for Europe is enough. Hopefully there will be soon good news from Serbia. We are again trying to effect a peaceful regime change, and this will be good for Serbia and good for the region. Thank you.
Well done, and maybe it's a good moment to underline, especially because we see how the Serbian people are suffering, is why we try to move the European Parliament also to speak out loudly against what Vučić is doing. So we continue now again back to Montenegro. Ivan, what is your insight on the enlargement process?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for having this opportunity. I'm delighted to see in the last period of time special, let's say, dedication and commitment, especially by our social democratic friends in European Union when it comes to promoting Euro integration path of the Western Balkan, and Montenegro also as one of the country, I would say, still front runner or run on the front runner in this process. I'll prepare something briefly. I'm going to read and then we can also answer. I think there will be some interesting questions because we are finding ourselves in very interesting momentum of EU integration process. I was truly struck by the central message of our gathering, the definition of enlargement policy as a Europe's peace project. And I think that is precisely what it is when we talk about Western Balkans. After all, the very idea of the EU was founded as a peace project in the aftermath of the Second World War. Why is enlargement synonymous with peace in our region, and why it is the only peace policy with no alternative? In the Western Balkans, things are often complicated and difficult to grasp. But when it comes to political, and I would even say civilizational choices, things are in fact quite simple. In our region, we face a clear choice between two alternatives: nationalist and expansionist agenda on one hand, and European and civic-oriented policy on the other hand. The first option, at least in our case, has always led to war and conflicts. That has been the case throughout history. The most recent painful reminder is the 90s. Unfortunately, that's not just history in our countries nowadays. It's our harsh present. The 90s are still very much alive today, now with additional elements compared to that time. In fact, I would say it in an even more brutal form. True, fortunately, not with the same level of armed violence and under at least somewhat different circumstances, at least until recently. The second option I was referring to is what we represent here from all the parties from the region, is European civic path. As this panel fitting calls, is the progressive agenda. And precisely because the first alternative leads us to war, unrest and conflicts, our European path is rightly seen as a peaceful project, as beautifully stated in the central message of this panel. That is why enlargement policy has always had the potential to be the EU's most successful policy. The most successful because it is emancipatory. It was exactly that in the early waves of enlargement at the beginning of the 21st century. But unfortunately, that promise was lost when it came to the Western Balkans. I will be frank with you as a friends, because we have to talk like friends very, very openly and very frankly. Responsibility for this, I would say, is shared between us and the EU. There was a period when it all seemed like a game of mutual bluffing. The EU pretended it wanted us in the Union, while in reality, enlargement policy was for at least a decade set aside, the result of a kind of strategic political blindness. On the other hand, many of our governments pretended to want EU membership, while in fact secretly hoping we would never join, so they could preserve entrenched practices and avoid real reforms. And while all this was happening, this is the most important part for all of us, and precise time was being wasted, the actors of that first option I was talking to, the nationalists, were waiting for their chance. And I would say they've gotten it. If you look at who holds power today in the countries represented exactly by representatives of this power, with the exception of Albania. I'm talking about Montenegro, I'm talking about Serbia, especially Serbia, and we have to especially help to our friends in Serbia because they lead very, very hard battle. And Northern Republic of Macedonia, which we all have to admit, and my colleague will talk about that, of course, more precisely, that we have, in the European Union, has big sin towards Macedonia, having in mind what kind of reforms and what kind of steps they delivered, and they practically got nothing on the return. And now we see a strange phenomenon. These nationalists and chauvinists who came to power in our countries no longer say that they are against the EU. Instead, they bluff our European friends, relying on their superficiality or naivety. And sadly, they have been quite successful at it. That is why I repeat something I already said at the similar gathering in Brussels in April. Today, the biggest enemies of the EU in our countries are not its open opponents, but the false advocates of the EU process. So today, we are where we are. We see the enlargement policy gaining momentum again. But at the same time, we face the bad guys from my earlier remarks, many of whom are now in power across our region. In some places, like my own country of Montenegro, we have a mix of nationalists and populists. And it's sometimes hard to tell which of them are worse. To put it as simply as I can, and speaking as someone from a party that has fought for the same European and civic values for 35 years since our establishment, here's the choice we face today. In Montenegro specifically, I'm talking about that. The Hamlet-like question is this: will the EU be faster and more successful in pulling Montenegro in the Union, or will the Montenegrin government, dominantly supported by the Rutan regime in Belgrade, be faster and more successful in pulling the country away from the EU path? I think that very credible was said very recently by my friend Srđan Milivojević for Belgrade. Very openly and very frankly, you heard him. What's the idea behind? And who from Belgrade, I mean Aleksandar Vučić regime, who are his practically puppets and who are his satellites in Montenegro? That is Speaker of the Parliament, second most important political personality in Montenegro. The answer on this dilemma, we will know in the next year and the year and a half or 2 years. And we have no choice but to fight. I'm talking about my party, colleagues from the EPS who are now in the opposition, because we have a very peculiar situation today in Montenegro. The true pro-European structures, the only authentic pro-European structures in Montenegro are now in opposition. And in power, we have the political structures and political parties who were opposed all this time to the EU integration, to the independence of the country, to the civil state country, to the anti-fascism, to the secularism, and so on and so on. With your help to win this civilizational battle, I hope, and to finally put an end to the 90s. A war that in its extended form and with its same actors is still being waged to this very day. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivan. And now we go back to Serbia, to our friend Marinika, which also got well known in the rest of Europe because being one of hunger strike, also protesting against the rigged elections in Serbia. So, please, Marinika.
Hvala, Andrease. Puno, drage kolege.
Thank you, dear colleagues, dear friends. I'm very honored to participate in today's panel on the enlargement of the EU to the Western Balkans. Let me, at the very beginning, express my deep thanks to our friends in the Social Democrats and the Social Democratic Party of Serbia, which my party is a part of. Over the past difficult months in Serbia, in Novi Sad, where we had a great tragedy, gave us unrestrained support to freedom and democracy when many kept silent and did not stay in silence. And Andreas is one of the most demonized politicians in Serbia, other than Tonino. And we know he comes from the European Parliament, and we've had great support from the European Parliament, and I really thank you for that. With the representatives of Montenegro, we were just thinking where we can run to if it goes wrong, because we are very, very close to dangerous events. In some other times, the opposition leaders in Serbia found refuge in Montenegro, fleeing from assassinations, from attempts at assassination, which happened to Zoran Đinđić and also to other opposition leaders. I don't know where we could run to today, because there has been a change in power in Montenegro, which, similarly to Serbia, is now feeling the influence of the Orthodox Church. And this ripple has been felt in the protests started by the opposition in Novi Sad. And the students joined us a month later. But I really feel horrified when I see in the protest the flags of the Wagnerian Jesus rather than the flags of the European Union. And if somebody comes with the flag of the European Union, they're surrounded, they're insulted, the flag is taken away from them. And you're in danger if you come to the protests with a EU flag. Everything is sliding to the right. We all know that. But Serbia and the Balkans are hostages to extremist policies, to nationalism, and this caused a great tragedy in the 1990s, and the Western Balkans haven't recovered since, not fully. And so we are more sensitive to every spark, any risk, any event which might cause further conflict based on ethnic reasons. And not much has changed, as you can see. We used to be all together, and now we're learning to be together again. And in the meantime, we had horrific wars. And they're telling us that new wars are knocking at our doors. We're told that we're used to that. I'm not used to that. And I'm really horrified when speaking about this. We have families, we have children, there are new people, new generations. So war is never an option. Unfortunately, there is a very strong political current in Serbia which opposes the current government of Mr. Vučić, not because they oppose the policy, but because the policy was not successful, whereby I mean ethnic cleansing. And this is all a legacy from the 1990s. We're trying to oppose them as much as we can, but Serbia has also paid the price according to the Copenhagen criteria, because we were imposed a condition that no other country was faced with, and that was cooperation with the court in The Hague. And this has slowed down our accession to the EU. Serbia, before the change in power, was granted candidate status. And this regime actually found everything ready. Everything that was done by the previous governments to gain the candidate status, now the current government has thrown away. Unfortunately, as Srdjan said, we've had this very harmful stabilocracy, and this has dulled down the Brussels administration and the European Union when it comes to all the warnings that we launched in terms of where Serbia would end up if the regime were left free to operate. We have now pro-Russian camps in Serbia, outside of Belgrade, where people are being trained to cause mass unrest. I also asked Nermin about that, and I heard that they exist in Bosnia and Herzegovina too. There are Russian and Belarusian instructors who came to Montenegro to train people this summer. So everything flows from one country into the other. And I'm certain, well, I published myself the news about this camp, and I'm not trying to cover anything up. And the Colored Revolution, which was mentioned, well, this is a recipe from Moscow. And this is a ball and chain around our feet and around our necks. And my party is the only one which publicly, despite all risks, asked for the introduction of sanctions and a turnaround in foreign policy. And we were alone in that, and were left alone, but we still think that it should happen. I don't know whether you know, but Serbia and the Russian Federation have a joint body. I think it's called the Serbian-Russian Committee to Fight Colored Revolutions. This is an official body, an institution, a bilateral institution, which Alexander Volin is in, who is also blacklisted by the US because he is a drug trader and he's a part of organized crime. And he has the highest security functions in Serbia. He used to be defense minister, and he used to be the head of the Secret Service. So this, as I was saying, is an official institution. The support to European integration in Serbia is dramatically dropping, and according to research conducted by the EU in Serbia, it has dropped down to 30%, which is a disaster. The most pro-European people are hugely disappointed, unfortunately, because they had the highest expectations of the EU, but the process is taking very long, and there are constantly new conditions and new tasks being imposed, which is not a problem, but who do you expect to carry out these tasks? And who do you expect to carry out the reform agenda? Do you expect that of a dictator who used to be Minister of Information in the 1990s, whereby I mean Aleksandar Vučić, who took over as a pro-European politician, apparently, but behind the mask, a radical was hiding. And now we're paying the price of all of that. All of us are paying that price. Myself and my colleagues are very critical of the European administration because we expect the most of us. We don't think about those who we don't expect anything from. But we are trying to shake things up to cause a more intense reaction. Because those of us who have some experience are recognizing that Serbia is not on a good path. And I fear sometimes that this might lead to deaths and human victims. I do expect these consequences because Aleksandar Vučić is saying that anything goes, that he can do anything, and a spark to cause what I was saying is enough. I come from a city where the protests started on the 1st of November, and I'm going to be very honest and open here. Two months ago, the police officer if he hadn't shot his gun, given a warning shot, the situation would have escalated. And the situation is dramatic because there is no coordination among students and between students, the non-governmental organizations, the pro-European sector, and in such a situation of anarchy, it's only a matter of days until there are victims. Let me make a constructive point now. We have two proposals or suggestions, food for thought at least, for next session. And I believe that these steps would be crucial, at least for us who belong to this political family. We would like to ask for EU elections to be organized in candidate countries as well. So the representatives from our countries in the European Parliament might be granted the observer status until the whole process is complete. So we thought that it would be good to talk at least about this, because this process is taking too long in the candidate countries and people are losing faith in the process. So we should establish a stronger link with the European Union, and this would be a way to do it. Candidate countries could have elections for the European Parliament for observers without the right to vote, but It would enable them to participate in meetings, to speak there. And the other suggestion is, since we are all drowning in corruption and crime, we believe that together as a political family we could establish a regional, I mean the Western Balkans, a regional international court or center to fight crime and corruption. We have a war crime court, but not for this. Crime and corruption know no borders, and they are very successful. So such an initiative at regional level with your support would be an excellent step forward and a message to the powers in our countries. Thank you.
And also, let me assure you that this kind of linkage, the S&D group for sure it is and is working on it. Now we switch to Taulan Pala, Albania. Just had a landslide victory also of the Socialist Party and is also one of the front runners of enlargement. Maybe this has to do with the fact that socialists are in the government. Please, Taulan.
Thank you. Good morning. I would like to thank the Socialists and Democrats in the European Parliament for the leadership, the commitment. It has been a role that this group has played for many years to keep the enlargement at the heart of the European debate. There have been times when talking about enlargement in Europe has been difficult. It's always difficult, but the progressives, the S&D, has kept this issue at the heart of the European debate, and all the members of S&D deserve the credits for this. We are very grateful. For me, that has been maybe one of the persons that was at the founding day of the Willy Brandt program for EU enlargement. And I remember on those times it was difficult to talk about enlargement. But it is now the moment that we go to the another momentum of enlargement. I hope that by 2030 we'll have new members in the European Union. Talking about my country, I'm very proud that Albania is progressing a lot when it comes to joining the European family. We have already opened all the clusters and hopefully to open all by Christmas this year, and also to finalize all the conditions by 2027. We hope that by Christmas 2027 to have closed all the chapters, and then ready soon to start with the ratification of the EU membership agreement during 2028. And taking the opportunity, I also raised this idea when we met in Brussels in April, taking into account that there will be European elections in June, end of May, June of 2029. Surely we would like to be ready also to organize these elections on the countries that are joining, and surely I am a convinced pro-European, and without the Western Balkans, Europe is not done yet, and we will have to do everything possible that the process is finalized with all the countries of the Western Balkans. We are advancing as Albania in e-governance, cybersecurity. I'm very proud to tell you that we have now a minister from the artificial intelligence that is covering one of the most, let's say, challenging subjects, which is the procurement. And this is something that we have to understand, that artificial intelligence is a mean that the small countries can use to shorten the disadvantage of the history with the big countries. So, and also when it comes to another issue, which is foreign policy, you know, I'm very glad to speak in front of you, because at this point Albania is 100% aligned with the EU foreign policy. And also when I talk about public support to EU joining, I'm also the luckiest person among my colleagues here, because on the last polls, around 94% of the Albanians support Albania's EU membership. And as Andreas mentioned, we had elections in mid-May this year. These were very important elections. We as Socialist Party, we put EU membership as our main message to this campaign. So basically, this is why the Albanians voted in a big majority, both in the country and also in the diaspora. For the first time, we had elections in our diaspora, and our diaspora is composed of most of the people living in European Union member countries, Greece, Italy, Germany, other countries, including also UK, United States and Canada, but most of them live in European Union, so most of the Albanian diaspora is a member of European Union. So for us, it's somehow as a kind of reunification in both senses. Reunification with Europe, because we are an old European country and people, and also reunification with the other half of the family that is already living in the European Union. But the fact that 2 out of 3 Albanians who live in diaspora voted for us, voted for the Socialist Party and for Edi Rama, is a message that was linked to the fact that we told to the Albanians that through voting for the Socialist Party and Edi Rama, you vote for Albania's joining European Union. And in fact, I see some correlates to the discussions, and one of the suggestions that I can give to my colleagues to the very friendly neighboring countries is that we should talk about European Union in the Western Balkans. And it's for all of us the same. We all do not have a plan B. We have only a plan A. And plan A is joining European Union, all of our countries. Because we belong to Europe, we are in this area from centuries, and it is very important that all the people in our countries, as the Albanians did in May, and they've been doing in 4th time in a queue, is that they believe that the only political force that can realize this reunification of Europe is us. And I do believe that also the other progressives in the other countries in the Western Balkans are the ones that can really realize the process of joining European Union. Another issue that I think it was proposed to be as one of the message that we can share with each other, surely what we ask from you. And one of the things that is very easy to say, keep fighting for EU enlargement. I mean, you have done this, and we're very grateful to that. But it is something that we have to continue. It is very important to keep this momentum. It is a dream for me, after 20 years in Parliament and politics even more, that we see the enlargement as very high in the EU political agenda. And this is something amazing. We should profit out of this momentum. Secondly, you also talk internally. We see it from outside, but somehow we feel that we are part of you now, and just hoping to sit next to you in the European Parliament chambers in some years after. But there is need for some institutional reforms that make a larger union more effective. And you're talking about that. We want to be part of this discussion, surely in a positive way. Thirdly is to expand early access of our candidates. There was a great idea which I support about the election of the MEPs also from our side, but I talk about another dimension, which is the programs of the European Union, such as Horizon, Erasmus Plus, and the single market ecosystem of small and medium enterprises. So why I propose it is because of the youth and entrepreneurs need to feel Europe today. I mean, you know, youth cannot wait. I'm used to waiting already now. I mean, for me, talking to you today as quite a member of this gathering is like a realization of a dream. 20 years ahead, it was almost impossible to come and talk in front of the PES group at that time. Now it's like it's a normal agenda. We do this regularly. It will come a moment that we'll meet daily, but at that time it was impossible. So basically, should think about that. And when it comes to the regional policy, we are very convinced. Albania is a good student when it comes to the fact that the European path depends strongly on good neighborly relations and regional cooperation. We know this. We know this from the past. We know this from the history, and we know this from the history of the European Union itself. We support very strongly the normalization of relations between Kosovo and Serbia, and would like to see tangible results on this matter. We support the integrity and the functionality of our neighbor Bosnia and Herzegovina, and but as the main message is that we are very strong supporters of the European perspective of all our neighbors, and this is very important. We are very happy that our political family in the European Parliament is a strong supporter of that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Taulant. And now we come to North Macedonia. Anna, she's quite fresh, also vice president of our sister party there, but also a member of the scientific council of our European Foundation, FEPS. So please, Anna.
Thank you. Ali moram stati jer sam puno bila za stolom.
I have to stand up. I have been sitting for a very long time. Well, congratulations, you have made it to the end of this panel. I know that you want to know when the break is going to be, so I'm going to be as short and as concise as I can.
Macedonia. I extend my most profound gratitude for this invitation and for the tireless efforts of our group to consistently keep the critical subject of enlargement alive, doing so in the spirit, of course, of the Willy Brandt program and upon the solid foundations of our social democratic platform. Allow me to convey a personal greeting and sincere apology for the absence of our president, Dr. Venko Filipče, who is currently fully engaged in the ongoing local elections in North Macedonia, which is also fundamental and demanding process that constitutes the first line of defense for the European democratic agenda, but at our home front. As Vice President of the Social Democratic Union of Macedonia, I feel an obligation to immediately present a core proposition as a direct response to our working title, and that is, of course, Progressive Agenda for Europe Enlargement. Firstly, the so-called progressive methodology for European Union enlargement, while originally was designed with the best of intentions to restore credibility of the process, paradoxically and with an unfortunate acceleration, translated North Macedonian European integration path into a comprehensive deadlock. Instead of making tangible progress towards internationalization and strengthening its European position, Macedonia has become a hostage to internal politics. But this is not directed by conventional internal politics and political dynamism, but rather by policies influenced and infiltrated by international authoritarian alliances, or more precisely, the political forces referred to as a black international. De facto, in our case, this mechanism has minimized the efficacy of merit-based reform while simultaneously maximized the efficacy of permanent blockade, intensified Euroscepticism, damaging hostile influences, and a complete deviation from the strategic policies of the European Union and NATO. Secondly, having experienced this profound credibility paradox, I would say, while reformist progress is not consistently rewarded, and when consequently the EU effectively is transferring the responsibility and risk exclusively onto the candidate countries, it was an expected result that this would lead to systemic obstruction of the domestic political process. And this political obstruction exposes the country to constant political bargaining and, of course, electoral instrumentalization of the topic, which severely distracts attention from the critical internal reforms in the judiciary and public administration. In this way, the country finds itself under sustained pressure, also from malign influences, whose ultimate objective is destabilization and geopolitical reorientation of my country. Thirdly, as a direct consequence of this so-called progressive methodology, instead of progress, it was the frustration that ultimately prevailed in the previous general elections, that is to say the frustration of citizens guaranteed an absolute majority of votes in the parliament. And this deep-seated frustration stems from the fact that the country, despite fulfilling very high political conditions such as conducting Prespa agreement, and fully aligning its foreign and security policy with the EU and NATO, still remains stuck in a comprehensive stall without deserved perspective. The SDSM, as a political subject now in opposition, has demonstrated great commitment to the progressive agenda for enlargement, both when in government but also now when in opposition. But in the new circumstances, SDSM remains the only political force in our country that is genuinely fighting for continued, substantive and credible association of North Macedonia in the EU. And from this strategic perspective, we were and remain still today prepared to support new and creative solutions for enlargement policies, even a temporary or reductive version of association up until the point of achieving full membership. However, we as SDSM are no longer willing to accept unprincipled conduct nor chaos as the defining characteristic of the process. Although we are aware that the various proposals on how the EU could be reformed and how new states could be gradually integrated without directly attaining full membership are still being actively discussed, what burdens us the most is the fact that the challenges facing the EU enlargement policy are so evident in the context of current geopolitical circumstances that there is no longer any room for mere tactics or indecisions. That this assessment is accurate is demonstrated by the fact that even though candidate countries like North Macedonia support the concept of gradual integration and especially the growth plan, it has proven to the contrary that this is incapable under the current government of North Macedonia. This again is a result of the lack of credibility in the enlargement policies, which works to the Union's own detriment when they meet, for example, quasi-patriotic government such as is our government, current government in North Macedonia, which is absolutely taking any reform initiative, nor it is adequately utilizing European funds, but to the contrary, it is incurring debt from other sources and investment funds also outside the European Union, which appear to have a really dubious financial portfolios. The association of North Macedonia with the EU today is burdened by not only by deficit of coherence within the EU own enlargement policy, but is compounded by a political inability of domestic governments, as was stated before. Despite being in opposition, SDSM remains still the sole political force that is fundamentally fighting to ensure we do not fall outside the geopolitical gravity of the European political community, but also we as SDSM are not fighting solely for Macedonian integration only, but for the preservation of the European compass for the entire region. Consequently, our political message is unequivocal. There is no effective nor progressive enlargement without a credible reward. That is why we demand full support for a truly progressive policy enlargement, one that is based on merit, of course, and that is capable of upholding strategic promises, and one that is equipped with clear mechanism that ensures the following negotiation flow will be based solely on the pace of reforms achieved. We also urge the EU to confront and uphold the current geopolitical imperative of enlargement. SDSM, as constructive opposition, will remain dedicated to the state strategic goals and will continue to press for the reforms and defend our European future. But also, we demand a credible partnership rooted in principle from the Union. So thank you very much. I hope I didn't...
Thank you, Anna. And as we could see now during the morning, how different situations can be. And of course, this is the proof also that politics and who makes the politics makes also the difference and is deciding on the situation and the living conditions in the country. We as a S&D group working as Tauland was saying, desperately intensively also for a successful enlargement for all citizens of the Western Balkans, involved in a lot of activities of the European Parliament. Can be standing rapporteur for country, can be leading delegations, can be working on several issues, electoral observation and so on. So I think it is also a moment to say clearly that we as S&D in various sectors are extremely active. So therefore, it's the best moment also to open the floor now for remarks and debates from our members, saying members of the S&D group, but also our guests, not only here on the podium, also they brought some other members of their respective parliaments, for example, with us. So whoever has a question or a remark is invited to speak. Okay, so we take René, Matthias, and
Thanks. Thanks, Andy. Thanks to all of you to be present here. Thanks to the S&D group to having here in Opatja organized a panel on precisely the situation on the Western Balkans. There's a certain, for me personally, although I'm the head of the German delegation, there is a certain personal touch to this. My father is from Novi Sad, and that is a city that is, of course, currently very much in the focus of what is happening on the Western Balkans. And I also must admit that when I was younger than now, one of my political heroes was and still is Zoran Đinđić. And I must say that when Đinđić got killed, the European Union failed. Because that was the moment when actually the entire Western Balkans should have taken into the European Union in order to organize growth and peace within the EU and not outside of the EU. Our major mistake was not to make use of the euphoria, the large support of citizens for European integration at that moment of time, but then create 2 decades of deception by, as you have also outlined it, with the very deplorable result that whilst in Ukraine in 2015 the European flag was the symbol of the democratic opposition, that nowadays the European flag represents something else in the region. Nevertheless, I believe we must be very clear, and that must be at the very outset. There can be no enlargement by Ukraine or Moldova without the Western Balkans being in before. That must be very clear. And this is our major challenge, that we make the Western Balkans ready to accede before Ukraine and Moldova exceed the European Union. And that also makes that we have to speed up massively our own game in the region, and that we must understand this. And therefore, I'm very curious to hear a couple of remarks from you that are on the ground. Because from an EU's perspective, we have a squaring the circle exercise. The geopolitical situation was outlined at multiple occasions. So at the same time, we have to deal with the leaders that there are, and they are difficult ones. There is the clear need for European Union that the Western Balkans do not throw themselves ultimately into the arms of Putin. So we have to deal with those that are currently in there, but by doing so, we feed the current regime and actually undermine the democratic opposition's efforts. And how to solve this squaring the circle exercise is, for me, the biggest challenge. Should European Union be more bold in supporting the opposition, because ultimately the rule of law is what is one of the necessary preconditions for accession? Will it lead to a situation that then it takes leaders like Vučić will finally not completely, basically, stop integration processes and indeed completely and entirely throw themselves into Putin's arms? Here, I still have some difficulties to get the proper understanding what would be the right way forward to stabilize the region, except for we have to do so. Second, what we see in the Western Balkans is also a continuation of the rising success that we see in European EU membership countries. In my personal reading as a socialist, all the successes have a lot to do with growing inequalities within societies. And then the European Union comes with their infamous structural reforms requests that within Europe we call austerity. So how can we actually achieve an increase of social justice, fighting inequalities, which is the core of our conviction as a political movement, whilst at the same time we have the structural reforms that are imposed on your countries? What are the possibilities there? What could also here the European Union do? What can we do to push on the European Union to change on that? And very finally, as representatives of social democracy, what can social democracy contribute to building regional solidarity? I personally find it beautiful that we have here representatives from all countries of the region sitting next to each other, that if we look at the right wing are actually fighting each other instead of talking to each other. And I believe here is a particular task for SND, for PES, but also for social democracy. And here I would like to hear more what we can do in order to strengthen regional solidarity by means of social democracy. Thank you.
Three, and then we give an answer round, and then we probably can make a second one. So, Matjaž.
Thank you, Andreas. Welcome, dear friends, among us. It's a pleasure having you, all of you, here. I would like to be a little bit more positive. It's always about the, let's say, point of view, or the glass is full empty or half full. It seems that the joint efforts on enlargement are at the very moment in this mandate closer than at any time in the past decade since Croatia's accessions, because it's strategically our ambition to push you among us as a European, let's say, future European member states. It's interesting because when I'm thinking what can we do for you, I think that we have, as a social democrats, to put on the agenda one of already mentioned goals by Tonino, or it was Irache, that we have to push forward how to make from our side a decision and go from immunity to the qualified majority when it comes to the enlargement process, because it will avoid that the bilateral issue will be the key question during the European path for your countries. I visited Bosnia-Herzegovina with some colleagues from S&D and from the parliament, and I have to say that I'm glad that they reached an agreement when it comes to the growth plan 2 days ago. That's an important message. Because I can see Bosnia-Herzegovina one of the crucial countries beside Serbia, because Serbia is too big, too important, too influence, and the influence goes also through some other countries. And I'm glad to say that we have two front runners as Montenegro and Albania on board. So we are waiting for you, and are also quite optimistic that we will reach that goal till the end of the mandate, but not just because of you, but also because of us. When Slovenia and other 9 countries entered to the European Union, the polls showed quite low percentage of support in the other member states. It was kind of 48% of the European membership, citizens supported the big bang, so-called big enlargement. So why I'm telling this? Because we have to reinforce our communication also in our, let's say, home countries. And I'm always trying to explain to the skeptics how would be European Union now in this geopolitical strategic moment without Romania and Bulgaria, for example. So that's why we need all of you on board as soon as we can. And the, let's say, membership of Montenegro and Albania would be a strong message, not just for the Western Balkans, but especially for our citizens, that we are still in a shape to push for an European integration. And that would be a strong message. There is another country on the north. I hope that they will, after the referendum, then it's maybe will take a part in 2026, and that's Iceland. So we could have an interesting package of 3 countries, 2 from Balkans and one from the north, and maybe it would be much easier to explain to our citizens what is an important of the enlargement in these geopolitical circumstances. I have a question, especially for our friends from Serbia. What could be the situation in your country after an anniversary of Novi Sad in a couple of weeks? We're expecting a huge rally. It's supposed to be a kind of 1 million people on the streets. My question is, it could be a break point in your country to see some changes. Thank you so much, Andreas.
Dobar dan. Ja sam Filip Tatalović, narodni poslanik.
My name is Filip Tatalović. I'm MP from the National Assembly of Serbia. The Democratic Party strongly supports the student protests in Serbia, and therefore I think that I'm qualified to explain the current situation. There was talk of the flags waged in these protests. Since I'm often present in these protests, I can tell you which flags are present. It's the flags of Gordon and Rohan. You may know that these are fictive kingdoms from the Lord of the Rings. Why are Gordon and Rohan flags being flown there and not the flags of the EU? Well, because students are trying to present their fight to the Serbian population as a fight between good and evil, and not a fight for the Social Democrats to gain power. True, students are often trying to make a distance from political parties. When we hear from our European friends that Serbian students have become nationalistic, I can understand this argument. Based on our experience and our surveys, about 2/3 of politically active students in Serbia belong to the left-wing political spectrum. But they do not want divisions in the fight against the Vučić regime, which is a hybrid regime that has foreign security services and other elements within it. They need support from everyone. We have this nationalistic wave which threatens to set on fire the houses of our neighbors. So we cannot afford to ask the question whether they're all social democrats. The fight for social democracy in Serbia will come, but at this point we cannot support just this side, and these are forces which are trying to prevent Serbia from becoming an epicenter of instability in the region. So do not worry about the lack of European flags in protests. The students in Serbia started their fight by cycling to Brussels, not to Moscow. This was a very clear political message about where they stand. This is why, ladies and gentlemen, you do not need to fear students from Serbia. They are fighting the just cause. They are fighting an evil regime, and this is why I am appealing for your support. Thank you.
I will jump in. Thank you, Andreas, for giving me a couple of seconds again, but it's very important for me to let you know, dear colleagues, that on Monday, we are going to have an important debate during the plenary in Strasbourg. All of you are coming from visa-free countries, and we are going to decide the next day, so on Tuesday, on so-called visa-free mechanism. And why I'm telling you this, because I'm reporter of this mechanism, and I'm getting some requests for the interview from especially the Serbian and also the media from the Republika Srpska regarding, because we are going to have a tool to put visas against for those who the European Union thinks that it needs to do so. And maybe it could be also a kind of tool to use it for some, let's say, guys coming from regime from your countries. I think that maybe it's something good to let you know during this debate. Sorry for jumping in. I forgot to say.
It was a perfect hand over to the podium for the quite, let's say, intensive questions which has been raised. Who wants to start? Marinika, please.
Matjažu, najpre hvala za ovaj kraj s tim što...
Thank you, Matjaž, for this good news. But we were a little more radical, but we did not request visas, but actually a ban on entry for people in power in Serbia into countries of the EU. And we know how the Brussels administration works and how huge it is and how decisions are being made. So if sanctions are being introduced against those who are violating human rights, who don't respect the rule of law, the media freedom, well, we thought that we should request that in Strasbourg, and we did so at the latest panel 3 weeks ago. So we asked for sanctions to be introduced against the highest dignitaries, the Prime Minister, the President, and the President of the Parliament, and also we asked for their assets to be frozen. As concerns November 1st, well, I don't know what to tell you. The risk is huge, but the gathering could be completely peaceful, or it might go peacefully during the commemorative part, while paying respects to the 16 victims. And then, if the protests are given over to citizens, it may escalate, because there is no coordination. I would like to say to Mr. Tatalovic that this is not the Serbian parliament and this is no room for debate among us. These debates are more suited to our parliament. We don't agree with the Democratic Party. We don't think that Vučić is done. We don't think that this can all be resolved by elections without changing the conditions for the elections, something that we have been requesting for years. Because this is he's not only an autocrat, he is a budding dictator, and he holds the purse strings, he holds in his way the security system, the public administration, the welfare sector, the health sector, and in Serbia the biggest employer is still the state, so all employees in the public sector are fully dependent on them. If the Social Democrats were in power, it would be different, but this party in power is using all its resources. So I wouldn't say that Vučić is done and that he will be done after the elections like it happened in 2000. No, the situation is not the same. Even in Montenegro is not the same. Before the change in power, Montenegro used to have only one media which was independent, but there is no such thing in Serbia. All of the media are in favor of the regime, and we have only two requests: freeing up the public media service, the national media service, and also the cleaning up of the list of voters, because you could find dead people there, people who have no right to vote. And in Republika Srpska, well, same thing. Hundreds of thousands of voters from Republika Srpska vote on our living conditions in Serbia because Vučić has been importing what we call phantom voters for elections, not only at national but also at local level. So the situation is very complex. But I would like us to keep to the topics that were envisaged in this debate. So take what I'm telling you with a pinch of salt, but according to unofficial information, on the 1st of November, there is an intent to cause unrest in Novi Sad, and everybody is being invited there. At some point, there was even a plan to relax the distribution of the police and to spread out the manifestation over several cities, but eventually everything is going to happen in Novi Sad. And there are rumors that pro-Russian paramilitary units, I don't know what else to call them, are being trained in Serbia, and they have joined forces with hooligans and criminal gangs, because it's no secret that Vucic has also trainers for criminals, and this is all funded by black funds from crime and drugs and so on. So this is where the regional court I proposed could help. So this is all being funded by gains from drug smuggling and organized crime. So there is not only the pressure on the public sector, but this also applies to the private sector. If you're an owner of a restaurant or a cafe, if you join the protests, then the next day you're going to have an inspection which will shut you down. Or if you're a farmer, subventions will be blocked because they are not voting for them if you're going to the protest, or if you're not keeping mum, basically. It may sound strange because there is an apparent democracy in Belgrade. If you come to Belgrade, although Belgrade does not equate to Serbia, it's a different thing. People are well dressed, all restaurants or cafes are open, and people can afford decent living. But everything all the problems that I mentioned could be resolved if we were to eradicate crime and corruption, which is eroding society. The worst people in Serbia are in power because any normal, educated person wouldn't sign such criminal contracts and agreements. But those who were the worst pupils in school are now in power. They bought their university degrees at fake universities, which have been sprouting up all over Serbia, and they are draining the public budget, and they're using this money for criminal purposes. So this is an octopus. But the conditions that I suggested, I think that are of key importance to us, because the public media should be able to report objectively, and we need to clean up the voters list. Recently we had local elections in Zaječar, and the court decided that the mandate were illegally verified in the local parliament. So the parliament could not be constituted. So the only way was to hold elections again. And the regime minister published an opinion whereby everything was okay and the parliament was allowed to work, to function. So they went against a court judgment. This judgment was completely ignored. They just simply circumvented the constitution and the laws. So these two conditions have to be in place for elections to be held. Because it's easy to say we need only to participate in elections and we cannot win by playing by their rules.
Thank you for the questions, and thank you also for the nice words about Zoran Djindjic, who was the first democratically elected prime minister and the former leader of the Social Democratic Party. When speaking of him and the situation in Serbia, let me say that Zoran Djindjic was killed by the special units known as the Unit for Special Operations of the State Security Apparatus. The fact remains that Aleksandar Vučić has reactivated the people from that unit. Mr. Picula came to visit us in Belgrade, and Mr. Nemetz, and you were able to see that in front of the National Assembly building we have a huge tents, a lot of tents, where criminals are located. On the 15th of March, when a big protest was staged in Belgrade, the special units were present in uniforms. Unfortunately, I don't have the photos here, with the high officials of the Serbian People's Party, and they attacked members of the Belgrade Philharmonic Orchestra for an unknown reason. As Marinika said, there are some convicted felons among them. I don't know if you are aware of the 24th of September in 2023. In Kosovo, a terrorist act took place on that date, which was committed by Milovan Radojcic with the paramilitary armed units. This drove Serbia virtually on the brink of conflict with NATO, and this was a huge hit to peace, to the peace process in the Western Balkans. Aleksandar Vučić promised that Milovan Radojcic would be processed. He fled to Serbia. Not only was he not processed, the members of his security services and himself are present in Serbia. Recently, they went to a town, a small town in Serbia, and they threatened the people of Kosirica and told them they could not take part in anti-government protests. So I'm saying this as an illustration of the kind of force that the students are fighting, students together with ordinary citizens. In June, we proposed certain sanctions for the regime. I think I don't need to remind you of what happened to Mr. Picula in Serbia. He was verbally assaulted together with other colleagues, Mr. Nemetz and so on. This kind of verbal assault is something that should not be happening in the 21st century. They're all calling us little Picula people to insult us. I know that Mr. Picula is a rapporteur for Serbia, and they're trying to discredit him, and members of the student protests are insulted as the members of the Ustasha. This has nothing to do with real life. This generation, a new generation of young people, does not care about the divisions of 50 years ago. They're not dividing people based on nationality, whether they're Croats or Bosniaks or whatever. There was an exhibition of photographs that took place recently in Bački Petrovac with a majority Slovak population. This was an exhibition of the violence of the regime, and the regime brought special police units to prevent people from coming to Bački Petrovac to see the exhibition. They also contested the elections for the Slovak minority. So the rights of the Slovak minority is being undermined. I want to thank the members of the Social Party from Slovakia. Those people stood up to support the constitution. When speaking of the constitution, Alexander Vučić also plans to amend the constitution because he is not pleased with how judges are reacting in the face of protests. Serbia is the only candidate country which has political prisoners at this moment. We have dozens of people who are in prisons in Serbia as political prisoners. They need strong support from the EU. They need a strong support from their friends, from us. And as a criminal knows no borders, solidarity should know not borders. And solidarity is key for success. I think that these attacks by the regime should not go unpunished, because Vučić is not an enemy of democracy only in Serbia. He is also an enemy of democracy in Montenegro and Bosnia and Herzegovina. He cannot be the right person to decide how people should live in Bosnia and Herzegovina together with Dodik. So for us, it is unquestionable that we're talking about independent states. It is not acceptable for Serbia to decide who will be the Prime Minister of Montenegro and to send the people, mercenaries, to do it for Vučić. But it is also unacceptable for people to come from Bosnia and Herzegovina to decide on who will be the president of Serbia without any constitutional backing. I am thankful that you helped us deal with the electoral roll, but we spent 10 months in the parliament talking about it, and the representatives of the regime did not want to do anything to amend the legislation, the electoral legislation. Let me say a few words about the upcoming protest on the 1st of November. We are expecting a big gathering, one of the biggest protests in Serbia so far. But we have the following situation. We will have units for special operations which are roaming through Serbia. We're talking about heavily armed paramilitary units, not just common criminals. Clearly, they are armed. They have guns and rifles. We will do our best for these protests to be non-violent. If some people in Europe are not prepared to support these protests, the least they can do is not to support Alexander Vučić and to say that he's the champion of democracy and European integration. I still believe that we will prevail over this evil. I took part in the fall of Slobodan Milošević and the protests that took place, and I know how these things are done. Once we deal with corruption and crime in Western Balkans, I think this will also drive down the inequalities that in the Western Balkan countries that we spoke about. Thank you.
I want to be brief because I think it's high time to have a break. While we are discussing about the perspective of the Western Balkans and what Western Balkan countries should do in the forthcoming period, let me share with you the results of a research conducted in Montenegro. Montenegro is the most advanced country in the integration process, and the support of our citizens for EU integration dropped from 80 to 60%. And secondly, if you look at the research results, the most influential leaders are Xi Jinping, Putin, Erdogan and Trump. So this speaks volumes about how politics and those who are in power in Montenegro have taken over the discourse from international levels. And here we have a very serious task ahead of us. Vučić is going to keep doing what he does and to export his democracy, in brackets, into the region. He has a strong stake in Montenegro. I think that he has given up on Kosovo and he now wants to stop Montenegro on the path of the European integration. He did say that Montenegro cannot become an EU member before Serbia. So through his men in our government, he will do that, and he has been doing that through Mandić or Knežević and through the Serbian Orthodox Church. He stirs up confrontation with the EU. What can we do? We could broach a certain topic of electoral engineering or electoral tourism, if you will. In 2020 in Montenegro, we recorded some 20,000 voters coming from Serbia to Montenegro to vote. And you can imagine who they supported with their votes. In Montenegro nowadays, you have voters who vote in Bosnia, in the Republic of Srpska, in Serbia, and in Montenegro. So they hold passports of all three countries and they reside in all three countries. Many of them are voting in all three countries, and through electoral engineering, they carry out the wishes of Aleksandar Vučić in these three countries. So I think that if we were to discuss the topic, it would be very useful, even more useful than maybe certain active steps, because we have to force Vučić to give up. But he has now entered one of the final stages of dictatorship. And I'm saying that based on a picture I saw in the media when one of the students with bound legs came out of prison to attend his father's funeral. When it comes to that stage, then everything is clear. As we're concerned in Montenegro, there is no dilemma. We have to respond more strongly, and this response must come from the European Union. If we are keeping to talk in a balanced manner, nothing will change. We have to show if somebody breaks agreements and stops us on the European path, they must be removed. Because when we say that Montenegro is the leader in European integration and Mandić and Knežević are still doing what they do, then we are confusing people. I'm not asking for your support. We are going to fight when the opportunity is presented to us, and we're going to win the election, but we need stronger messages to define our strategy so that those who are bringing down the European perspective and whose president is Vučić must be marginalized.
Second round, collecting all the question remarks from here, and then, because also to say one thing, in the European Parliament one day we are trained to speak not longer than 1 minute. so Mark? No, Mark raised for you. So Adnan, and then okay. So okay, we take Adnan, Marta, Mark, and whoever.
We're also trained to help each other, as you see. First of all, I'm really glad that you're all here, and I've been
very positive when hearing from you. I mean, for me, it's a personal thing. Just like René said, it's not only something from the political party, since my heritage is from north of Albania, born in Kosovo, and probably the best woman that ever lived on this earth, my grandmother, is from Brčko. So in that sense, I'm a product of Balkans. I always, when I listen to all of you and I go away, I think, what did I forget to ask, or what should I been saying to them in terms of coach's advice or whatever. So I have two things that I would shortly like to talk about. One is, I don't know if it's a coach advice or a question, but I think it's really important not only to work with us as MEPs, but work with the different member states' national parliaments. Because in the end, you need more friends, not only us, but you need friends from each and every one of our countries. If Sweden says no, or Germany says no, we have a problem. So we need to make sure that both us, as individuals, but also you, talk to more, make sure that we have more friends outside of the MEP group. So that's more of a coach advice. The secondly thing I think that we all need to work on all the time is that even though Swedish citizens are pro-European, we need to work with the pro-European agenda all the time, even in our member states. So my question to you is, what can we do to make sure that the people of the Western Balkans believe in the European agenda and not only see it as a thing on a paper, but really a genuine thing that they think is a good thing for them. And sometimes I feel that when we talk to each other, we talk in terms of we are doing this for you, but I think we need to talk, we are doing this for our own citizens. And this is both a coach advice, but also a question. So with that said, I think I've reached my first minute. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Marta?
Thank you very much, Andreas. First of all, thank you so much for being here and for sharing so openly your hopes, but also your frustrations regarding the accession process. I come from Portugal, the country furthest away from your region. And I must tell to you and share to you that even in Portugal, we clearly understand your message and the need to ensure that Europe is not complete without you. After that, I would like to consider you as some friends that are going to join us in a couple of years. And that's why my question would be as follows. I've been with Matthias and with Tonino Pizzula in Bosnia-Herzegovina a couple of weeks ago, and we hear from civil society. And civil society is not in the bubble. And in the bubble, not outside the bubble, they feel that we are not so credible as European Union as we would like to be. Namely regarding condemning the leaders that are dictators and prioritizing us stability instead of democracy. This is something that as a common group we need to be very clear and we need to correct. But the question was perhaps for all of us, but especially for Mr. Bala, that clearly mentioned a timeline for Albania, but also the availability for helping us in introducing the reforms that we need to do inside our European Union before receiving other countries. So the question would be, what do you think, in your perspective, that would be absolutely imprescindible to make this enlargement possible in the years ahead? Thank you. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Marta. And now, Mark?
Yes. I'm the shadow rapporteur for SND in the AFCO committee, which is the Committee of Constitutional Affairs, on a report on institutional changes linked to enlargement. And I can tell you it's SND and some other progressive forces as the Greens that support this enlargement very much. And I'm a very afraid on how the nationalists, the far right, are trying to halt this process, and some of the EPP also go into that direction. EPP had been watering down this report, which was a strong report in the beginning of Sandro Gossi, a Renew colleague, and this is a bit worrying, and we have to, as members of the European Parliament, really go against that. And also we have homework to do at home in our member states, where we have to remind people how important enlargement is, because the far right, they always come now, there will be social dumping with enlargement, etc. So René mentioned it also in the beginning. What we also have to do is continuing to deepen the social dimension of the European Union, that workers' rights, the living conditions of the people who are living in our member states are good, that they are not afraid of new members, and that they are not afraid of social dumping. So workers' rights are very important. Defending our social union is very important, and this is what we have to do. We talked a lot about what you have to do, but we must not forget we have to do deepening our union and have institutional changes. And I agree also with René, before the next European elections, we need 1 or 2 new member states from the Western Balkans, because we were 28 and the union functioned. Now we're 27, so we can have more countries. But when we are 35, of course, we need to change our rules. So we know that we have a huge responsibility too. This is just a message to you that I wanted to give you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So my question is now, before looking on the hands rising on the podium, if there are any hands going up still in the auditorium. If not, we have enough time also afterwards to share some issues. So then I would ask you to come, let's say, also to the final round before Alessandro will also give us a guidance in summing up. But I have one remark maybe before, because the question is always enlargement country. Beside the founding country, we are all others coming from enlargement countries, and we should not forget this when we speak here with the future enlargement countries as well. And so I would put also the question which we heard here, but would also ask you, besides being precise and short, also, because we spoke very much on those which are destroying democracy, where the dangers are. I would also like that when we turn going home, to know what is the socialist, the social democratic idea which we share on how your countries and how the European Union, our common European project is benefiting. Because very often we speak more time about the enemies and forgetting to speak about what we are standing and fighting for. Now we start with you, Anna.
Okay. Thank you so much. Hvala vam na pitanje. Ono što mene intrigira nakon ove
Thank you. What intrigues me following this discussion is the following. So it is clear that this black international movement has penetrated the region, and formally speaking, they belong to the EPP group. I'm wondering about the following thing. So I do not expect to receive an answer today, but I'd like to know how our group, when communicating with the EPP, can intensify their pressure towards these guys in our region, these so-called patriots which follow Orban's line and so on. What can the European Parliament do? How can it apply pressure to expel them from the EPP group? They are no longer defending right-wing politics. They are not the center-right parties. They are some kind of a black international mafia-style group. So this is my question. How can we join this program? On another level, to answer the question put by Mr. Andreas, when you said we, what can we do? I'm not sure if you meant us from the Western Balkans or us, all of us? Because if you are referring to us in the Western Balkans countries, we have huge problems, and of course your mentorship is of a huge importance for us. So the EU should take the lead towards us, because we are in a more vulnerable situation. We no longer want to be a proxy territory where big powers will exhibit their strength. And we want to defend this area of solidarity. We want to defend European values and the humanistic principles, all of these principles that are targeted by kleptocracy, neoliberalism, and so on. Of course, we want to support all of these initiatives that will bring about more solidarity. Thank you.
So Marta asked me about what do I think about the reforms. First, so make us sure that we are joining and after make the reforms. So because in the history of these discussions, you remember the treaties and those discussion referendums about the Constitution of Europe. So we don't want to get in this trouble again. But I always have been a supporter of more competences of European Parliament, and I do belong on those European politicians that share this idea. It's more competences of European Parliament will make European Union more democratic. That's for sure. But this is another discussion. We will have time to discuss about that. And then coming back to some of the points that Adnan raised. We know, that the process of joining European Union is a set of reforms. And I want to make it clear that we don't do these reforms because these are the homeworks that we need to accomplish to join European Union. We know that these reforms are good for our people. If these reforms weren't good for our people, maybe we would do it because the people would not vote for us. And Albania is a good example of the fact that our people support the reforms we're doing. Take into account the toughest reform we did about the justice system. And it was difficult. We took some time to convince some part of the politics, because you need to have a very qualified majority in the parliament for such reforms. But the fact is that the people support. The people support these reforms. So this is why we are doing these reforms for the good of our people. And the European Union has always been a point of reflection. So, like, you want to do good for your people, then be part of these reforms. Third, what Andreas said, European Union is a history of enlargements. Started with 6 countries, and then enlargements. And since Croatia joined in 1st of July 2013, I've been one of those people who were invited in Zagreb at that very beautiful day. It was a summer day, beautiful. But imagine, have passed 12 years since then. And so what S&D has to do, you have to speak loudly about the new countries joining. Would be very happy and great for a great message for the region that by 2029, when you will go for re-election, and hopefully many of you get re-elected, to have elections also in Albania and Montenegro and the other countries as well. Thank you.
Ok, evo ga. Hvala. Svi uvek kažemo bit ćemo kratki, niko ne bude kratak.
So everybody is saying that they're going to be brief, and nobody is ever brief. But we from these countries have a lot to tell you, and very many people, it's true, don't know what's going on in Serbia. But we are here to share information about that. But the most important thing is what you can do. I hope that Fico will be excluded in Amsterdam in a couple of days. If you're coming there, I'll see you again. And this is excellent news. And this is an excellent tool, an instrument to carry out pressure on colleagues from the EPP to do something, even if they don't exclude Vučić's party. They should be given a yellow card, or they should be marginalized, or something should be done, because it influences people in Serbia. Because on the one hand, he bows down to Putin and Xi Jinping, and on the other hand, he says, well, see how Europeans like me. I do with them whatever I can. People in Serbia don't understand the bureaucratic language. Nobody reads that. Tonino's report is excellent about the situation in Serbia, but nobody is reading that other than us who are directly concerned, because people don't understand the diplomatic language. They don't understand this bureaucratic formulation, what it means, sharpening criticism against this or that. They just see that Vučić is taking pictures with the ones and then with the others, and Vučić keeps saying that he's acceptable for everyone. And his voters drink the Kool-Aid. But there is this space, these people in between who are educated, but they are not politically educated, and they don't know what to think. And then he meets with Kaja Kallas and Marta Kors and Ursula, and he says, well, everybody likes me. I've had 20 meetings in 3 days, and nobody has these meetings. So you can help us in this sense, because I know about the February 24 resolution, and the EPP voted as well. So there is room for lobbying with them as well. This must be the first thing, because Vučić will no longer be able to say then that he's well liked on the international scene and that everybody supports him rather than supporting the opposition. So this is very important, and as I mentioned, we should also launch the 2 initiatives about the court and European elections in candidate countries. So he should be attacked as much as you can, because he doesn't like to be attacked, and then he starts making mistakes, and when he makes mistakes, then we can do something.
Now? Yes, it's on. Okay, I'll try to be brief, and Andras inspired me in this, with his question. I'll try to synthesize it. We spoke about that yesterday. What is, he asked about that, what should be a constructive discussion about EU progressive agenda from the social democratic point of view. But, you know, instead of having that kind of productive discussion on economic agenda, social agenda, all of you, many of you ask the same question. We are witnessing in Montenegro, I'm speaking now about Montenegro because of the nature of our ruling coalition, not about that. There is no discussion about that if you analyze what we are dealing with in our daily political life. It's about building the monuments to war criminals. Today, during August and September, that is the top issue. We are speaking about, I don't know, changing of constitutional arrangement of Montenegro from civic state to ethnic state, changing of languages, switching the flags in the cabinet of the Speaker of the Parliament, this Andrija Mandić, and so on, so on. There is no productive agenda about these core EU issues, what European Union really means for our societies. And that's what is going on. And what is my point? I said to my friend yesterday also, it's not crucial what's going on when you meet, I don't know, Prime Minister or Speaker of the Parliament. Unfortunately, when they say to you empty phrase or declaration. It's much more important what's going on in the society, in the Montenegrin society as well and in the societies of all the other countries. Marinika made a great point when she referred to what's going on in Belgrade. Belgrade is not Serbia. When you come there, you'll see, I don't know, restaurants, some people going around. You may say, okay, it's everything okay here. It's the same thing. It's the same thing in Montenegro. It's important what's going on in the society, in different languages, in deep layers of the society. We have in Montenegro a situation that second largest Montenegrin town is led by open fascists belonging to this Mandić party. The biggest city in the northern of Montenegro, one of the biggest cities in Montenegro is Pljevlja, is also led by the open fascists, also belonging to this Mandić party. Many other cities are led or co-led by similar personalities. So, and don't be surprised what Daniel said when he quoted this last polls and surveys in Montenegro that we have decline of something about, I don't know, 50 to 20% compared to the last polls when it comes to the public support of EU. So now we are about 60, we used to be about 80. It is going on to continue. If such political arrangement, if such ruling coalition continues to rule. And when we come below 50, then we will not need anymore any kind of empty declaration. It will be senseless. And they are waiting for that momentum. In the meantime, they are digging, they are doing everything to practically compromise, to undermine everything that is connected with real European agenda. And I conclude, that's why I agree with Marinika, I agree with Daniel and what they said. You, as our true friends, have to be more direct, more open, more frank in your analyzing the situation in all our countries. Like I have to expose this good example of our long-lasting friend, Mr. Picula, who is, because of that, the biggest enemy of regime in Serbia, as they quoted, and he is also one of the biggest enemy of the same Vučić people in Montenegro. The same things they are speaking about him in his. That is the price. It's not comfortable for him. But that's the only way. Mr. Weiss also in his last visit in Montenegro has very good and direct approach, and he has been immediately attacked by the same actors. But that's the only way to practically that's the only way to confront the actual status quo and this behavior of such actors that are leading us to the situation in which the majority of the population in our countries in Montenegro will lose faith in EU. Thank you.
Prvo ću s vama podeliti jednu dobru vest.
Let me share some good news. This panel is being broadcast over the internet, and a colleague of mine just texted me that the citizens of the region are not the only ones exposed to the pressures from the Serbian regime, but the same pressure is being exerted on Serbian citizens living, for example, in Austria. And another thing I want to share with you is the fact that in Serbia we're aware of the fact that Europe has its own problems, for example, the Ukraine issue, and also an issue with the countries that deviate from European values, and also the relations with the US are now important for the European Union. But we feel that our problem is the greatest. But this is not a problem that affects only us. It is an obstacle to normal life in the Western Balkans, and we know that we have to solve it ourselves, not asking from you to do what is our task. So your support is very welcome, of course. And in one of the forthcoming meetings of the European Parliament in Strasbourg, I think in October too, our Democratic Party is going to try and organize a photographic exhibition showing the repression carried out by the regime in Serbia. And I would like to ask the S&D political family to invite us so that we can also say in the European Parliament, stop repression in Serbia. And this is an important message which can show that the citizens of Serbia are not left to their own devices. This is a symbolic gesture which will not cost you much, but it will mean a lot to us in Serbia. This photographic exhibition is an opportunity for people in the European Parliament to see what repression in Serbia looks like at this moment. And what I would like to say is also that these meetings are very useful. And I'm hoping that we are going to have the opportunity to organize such meetings in the region. And Andreas has been an excellent moderator here, but we, I think, have the ability to meet every 2 months in Sarajevo, in Podgorica, in Skopje, in Tirana, and in Belgrade. Although Belgrade perhaps might not be the safest place for those who come there. Ranko also told me that he was held up at the border when he tried to enter Serbia last time. But I would like to thank all the organizers and thank the interpreters who helped us to understand each other. Thank you for your wonderful services. The interpreters, thank you as well. I would like to ask an applause for those people who helped us understand each other very well today. I'll try to keep to the European minute. Well, first and foremost, one of the questions was how can we help to increase the faith of the European Union, of the citizens in the EU values? I'm going to ask you a question, and you can yourselves conclude whether this is an example of increasing the faith. When Commissioner Kos visited Montenegro, she said that she would hug Andrija Mandić on one of the mountains in Montenegro, the Durmitor mountain, when Montenegro becomes member of the EU. But Mandić said that Putin is his president. So this is very confusing for the Montenegrin public. I don't think we should spread depression, but I'm sure that this confuses citizens, and this also goes for the fact that Andrea Mandic, as the majority leader in Montenegro, is hugging the Russian ambassador, and then it even goes to a reception at the US embassy. The citizens are even more confused by that. And in Montenegro, somebody who was convicted to 5 years in prison for an attempted coup is the president of the parliament now. I don't know whether this is possible in other countries. But this is not an expression of regret or an attempt to illustrate issues in Montenegro. We're going to resolve them ourselves. I'm saying this firmly. The opposition will deal with these problems ourselves, but certain messages coming from European addresses can confuse the public in Montenegro and also cause a loss of faith. And we know that loss of faith breeds also distrust. So we need to precisely say who is responsible for stopping the reform process. This is not a technical matter only. This is a matter of values, and values are the basis for every society. Thank you.
Thank you all also for the time-wise discipline. And I will ask now Alessandra Moretti, a member of the European Parliament from Italy, and also Vice Chair of the EP, European Parliament Serbia delegation, to sum up and conclude our meeting. Please, Alessandra.
Grazie.
Thank you, Andreas, and thank you for everybody who's taken the floor this morning. Thank you to colleagues who provided a lot of useful contributions. Of course, this is part and parcel of a discussion that has to continue and will continue. We need to deal with this within the institutions and the representatives of the institutions and representatives of civil society in the region, the Western Balkans. It's essential for both sides of society. So we have to intensify the work we're doing to support and bolster progressive forces so that we can help you along that path to accession. In our group, enlargement is a top priority, and this is something that we've been working on together for many years. In fact, more than 12 years, we haven't had an enlargement, so I think we need to change gear. As socialists, of course, we stand shoulder to shoulder with you to help you in this process so that we can see it come to fruition. However, today we've seen that there are various different phases involved in the procedures of accession for the different countries. I've been following Serbia fairly closely together with Tonino and other colleagues. I'm the vice chair of the EP delegation to Serbia, and we have been following very closely what's going on, especially recent events in this country. And I can tell you that it's not necessarily a positive development that we've been seeing, especially in recent years. We'll see the anniversary of the collapse of the Novi Sad station structure. Of course, we see that there's so many stories that cross and interlink and interact throughout Europe, and part of our political family across Europe, and so especially in this part of Europe as well. And I have to say that the collapse of the Novi Sad station roof was a tragic moment that led to this fracture in the country. The Serbian government has decided to respond to the protests with violence. Protests which people came out on the street spontaneously. That means that democracy has been traduced there, betrayed, and we can see that we need to make progress on both sides. I don't want to leave you with a tragic snapshot of what's going on. We need to support the positive aspects as well. We have to expect more from the EPP, expect more from von der Leyen, hope that they are putting pressure on Vučić as well, not just to sanction him when he ought to be sanctioned, but that we see maximum pressure for free press, maximum pressure for freedom of expression, for academic freedom, the judicial independence, fundamental pillars of society without which enlargement is simply not possible. And cooperation between European and Western Balkan progressive forces is absolutely essential to overcome these obstacles, such like political crisis that we're seeing in Serbia. We need to work together. And the Willy Brandt program constitutes a very important forum to meet. A program that's always tried to build bridges through dialogue and reciprocal respect, mutual respect. So we have opportunities there to promote reforms, fundamental reforms. But how should I put it? It's essential that this process be wished for by both parties. It's a reciprocal process. So we need to see that mutual will to make headway on specific plans for reform, for growth, commitment to fundamental values that we expect under the rule of law and the state of equality. The state of the rule of law, this is nothing that you can take for granted in any European country, in fact, anymore. Look what's going on in Orban's Hungary. There are all sorts of scenes we've seen in outrageous situations in the courts in Hungary, for example, but we must always denounce those. But turning to the question of enlargement, Marta said something I thought was very good. The process of enlargement has to bring on board civil society in a genuine fashion. In Italy and other countries, we've seen changes which were only possible when the politicians managed to get on board citizens in a way where they feel that they're involved. If civil society no longer has faith in society or in European politics, we're lost. We're all lost. So this is a challenge that is up to us to bring, that we've heard as well the point of bringing across a clear signal message to civil society, saying Europe needs you. It's not just that you need Europe. So we need to give that message of them being implicated. We need to be stronger on that front. We want a stronger union prepared for enlargement. And I would like to thank everybody who's hosted this, Andreas, who's moderated this panel, and the participants, and I'm convinced that there will be further occasions, and there have to be many, many more occasions for us to meet here in the European Parliament, even if we're in Croatia today, but in your countries too. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessandra Moretti, and now we conclude with a thanks also to the translators, which had a very intensive morning also today to do. Thank you all for coming here. Thank you for your inputs, for sure. It's not the last time. We will repeat it quite soon. And also let me thank Teresa and especially Jürgen for all the preparation has been done in the forefront and also in the aftermath of this meeting. And have a good afternoon. Thank you.